In this country, the 85,000 richest people in this country, which is 5%, the top 5%, have an average wealth each of 3.6 million euro. If you average it out, some of them are billions. So it's a tiny group of people who are absolutely stunningly rich, precisely because of the hardship that ordinary people are suffering. When we talk about the housing crisis, the basic things that the system is more than able to produce, that they did produce in massive abundance pre-2008. I mean, we were building 90,000 houses a year in 2008. At the moment, we can barely build about 20,000. It's not that we can't build them. Sure, we were building them at 4 or 5 times that rate pre-2008. It's just now the banks have decided we can't make money from that. And the developers have decided we can't make money from building houses for people who need them. That's not profitable. What's actually profitable is to have a massive scarcity of housing. To sit on building land and wait for its value to go up. To drip feed a small bit of development so you can charge absolutely astronomical rents. So the worse the crisis gets for ordinary people, the richer the people, the tiny group of people who own the property get. So they benefit from it. But yet they dangle the carrot in front of us and make us furiously angry because we know, and people out there know, we could solve this problem. We could see the empty houses. We could see the land. We could see the wealth that would solve these problems. And that's why, to me, it's even more certain that the wave of revolutions that we have seen again and again, the tides of revolution in the short history of capitalism, that such revolutionary upheavals are on the way again. When a system as wealthy as this, and when that wealth is on display for everybody to see, cannot do the basic things for people. It can't put a roof over their head. It can't have a public transport system that works. It can't provide a health service where you can actually walk in and get health care without having to wait for 48 hours on a trolley. And people are aware that not only is this bad, but actually it's getting worse. Because those things weren't true when I was small. Well, I used to be able to go into St. Michael's Hospital in Dunleary and get seen in half an hour. 20 years ago, when we were a poorer country, you could actually get the health care. Well, the problem is the same. They closed down all those hospitals in order for a small group of rich people to set up a few private hospitals that they could charge a fortune for. Right, so they create a scarcity in healthcare so they can profit from it. And so the worse the situation is when you walk into the public health system, the better for the Larry Goodmans. I mean, the irony of it is just extraordinary. The beef baron, the most wealthy man who produces beef in this country, who was indicted effectively for selling rotten beef to Iraq in the 1980s, is still the most powerful beef baron in the country, hides all his money in Luxembourg where he doesn't pay any tax, is effectively an official representative on the world stage for the government in terms of beef. And what did he move into after doing all that? Private healthcare, of course. Makes sense, doesn't it? It's just another pound of flesh to make money from. So that's the rottenness of the system. But the idea that people are just going to take this, that they're going to accept it, is nonsense. It's purest fantasy. And Owen Murphy and Leo Varadkar, if they think that's true, they are going to get a rude awakening. They're going to get a rude awakening. Going on across the world at the moment. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Look at the revolt in Iraq. I mean, Iraq that was bombed into the dark ages. One of the most horrific actions imaginable. Destroyed the infrastructure of the country, depleted uranium everywhere, absolutely slaughtered the people. Mass displacement of millions of people, and yet after all of that, they're on the streets revolting as we speak. standing up and fighting. You look at what's happening in Lebanon. A country blighted by imperial cabal, by rotten sectarian politics, by vicious civil wars, by repeated attacks by Israel, and so on. And what do you see now? Masses of young people on the streets, coming together, crossing over the sectarian line, standing together and saying, we're not going to let the government charge us for WhatsApp messages. And isn't that just such an example of what Marx said when he said the system creates its own grave digger? Because it unites us, it brings together. Just the very things that are making profit for the system are also bringing together the movement of working people who have common interests, who recognise those common interests across the world, see the fact that they are part of a common fight against a rotten system. Right, so that potential is there. But how do we bring it to fruition? And that really, I suppose, is the key thing. And the answer is partly given in rooms like this. It's about building an organisation that links those struggles together. And when I look around this room, and I see two US military veterans who are down in Shannon Airport protesting about the use of Shannon by the US military. Abu Shar, a Palestinian activist, somebody who spent years in Gaza fighting to organise the resistance in Gaza, who's now joined People Before Profit. Over there protesting week in, week out about the lack of disability access. Who've been out fighting on the climate strikes, on disability rights, on student rights, organising rent strikes in Trinity College. When I see people like Rachel over there, who's currently leading a campaign about the failure to provide the proper resources for children with special needs. Who are fighting. I have a lot more I can't mention here, but everybody here came through a struggle for a better world, a struggle for repeal, where we overthrew the power of the priests and the church. So that's what we have to do. We have to win the best people who are fighting in their workplace, in their community, in the particular struggle that affects them. We need to get in behind them, support them, build solidarity with them, and connect them up with others who are fighting the same rotten system, and build a political party and a mass political movement based on that principle of solidarity and the imagination that we can live in a better world. And I think that is very eminently possible in this country at the moment. And the last thing I just want to finish with, I'm sorry Sean for going on so long, the other myth that they always say about socialism is it'll be, grey and uniform, and it'll all be the same. And of course, that's deeply ironic when you think what capitalism gives us for food is McDonald's all over the world and Coca-Cola, or the 3 or 4 fashion companies control the entire fashion industry. It's deeply ironic. But of course, the truth is, as was alluded to earlier on, socialism is a movement of the human imagination as much as anything else. And it always has been. Every single wave of revolution that I mentioned was accompanied by massive flourishings of art, of scientific advance, of the imagination. So that is also what we're fighting for. It's not just about the redistribution of economic resources, it is about the freedom and liberation of the human spirit. And I can think of no one to sum that up better than the beautiful final lines of the book that Leon Trotsky wrote in the midst of the Civil War in Russia. An absolutely brutal war that he was fighting, but while he was fighting it and organising the Red Army to resist the counter-revolution, he was writing a book about art and literature. And it concluded with the lines, socialist future, I'm paraphrasing, but this is more or less it. The socialist future, under the socialist future, all human beings will rise to the level of a Shakespeare and a Goethe. But above that, new peaks will rise. That's the socialism we're fighting for.
Okay, thanks very much. So that brings us to an end for Friday night here at Marxism. It's been an excellent opening. We start tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Yeah. Right. Yes, we're starting at 10 o'clock sharp. We have a long day ahead of us. We will be trying to start on time. So people, you perhaps leave some of the imagination till tomorrow night. Just a couple of things. Just remind people that the book launch, or the bookstore is upstairs, jammed back with great titles. It's a bit out of the way, maybe people haven't seen it, so make sure to check it out over the weekend. The exhibition of the posters from 1968-69 will be running throughout the weekend as well. So enjoy, and we'll see you all bright and early tomorrow. Thank you.